If you want to be sure that each respondent is getting the same meaning out of each question, it has to be precise. So let's run through some guidelines for question composition. What is it that we need at the end of a research project? Well, we need accurate responses to each question. We need those responses to be gathered economically and in a way that we can interpret with confidence. How do we achieve this? And here are our guidelines: with simple, precise, and clean questions. Our second principle then is precision. If you want to be sure that each respondent is getting the same meaning out of each question, it has to be precise. Narrow the focus to exactly what you want. Be careful about ambiguity. Make sure you're using the respondent's language, and I mean their everyday language, and think about the time frames that you're using. Let's examine each of these in turn. Narrow it down. Right. Might have a question that says, have you ever searched for information on immigration? Now, maybe that's broad washing. Right? Maybe that's just a little broad. Right? If you ask a question like this, you'll get dozens of different border crossing issues showing up. For those of us who live in Eastern Canada, it's the unofficial crossing from New York into Quebec. In the U.S., it's the southern border. In the British Isles, it's the Channel. Right? So we'll get people answering all sorts of questions, not perhaps the question we intend. Perhaps what we really wanted to hear about was formal immigration process to get into a specific country. Where do you stay when you travel? Right? Do you mean travel on business when somebody else is footing the bill? Do you mean on vacation? Do you mean on my way somewhere or at the destination? So a few more words can ensure that everyone is thinking along the same lines. Where do you usually stay at your destination when you travel on vacation? Right? Get rid of those questions that a respondent might have in their head as they're reading. True, simplicity and precision can be at odds. So it's a balance. Add only what you need to get to that precise meaning. Avoid ambiguous words, right? To make sure, or expand on ambiguous words, to make sure that everyone understands your question in the same way. How long have you lived here? Here is an ambiguous word. Do you mean in this country? In this city? In this house? What is your income? Are you referring to my personal income or my household income? Before or after taxes? Is it what's on every paycheck or what my income tax documents say at the end of the year? How many children do you have? Well, in today's complex families, do you mean biological or the children that my partner brought into the relationship? Do you mean the children that live at home with me, or do you mean my 21-year-old son who's moved out and is on his own now? Right. Add precision, because some of these words and these meanings are ambiguous. And when you're asking about household composition, do you need to know whether they're a partner, a spouse, a husband, wife, or are we really only interested in how many mouths there are to feed when I buy groceries? Sometimes you don't need the level of precision that you're asking for. And of course, there are variations in how words are used across countries, of course, but also within countries. And we have to be aware of this. The evening meal can be called any number of things in the English-speaking world. So can a carbonated soft drink. I grew up in Ottawa, where we referred to it as a soft drink, and pop was what the weasel did. And it wasn't until I moved to Toronto that I started to hear it referred to for soft drinks, carbonated soft drinks. Something as simple as housing types. What they're called might vary greatly across your sampling area. Right? I call the one on the left a duplex and the one on the right a semi-detached. And I'm sure that wherever you live, they're called something else. So how do you make this less ambiguous? Provide a thumbnail sketch or provide an illustration to make sure everyone is thinking about the same thing. Time frames. Right? Think about the scales that you're using for time frames. Once every 6 months might seem to be the same as twice a year, but it's not. What if I drink champagne only over the winter solstice holidays, say Christmas, Hanukkah, Diwali, and New Year's? Well, that's twice a year, but it's not once every 6 months. So think that through. Selecting the correct time frame is crucial. We can ask about soft drink consumption yesterday, but probably not over the past week. People may not recall what they did day to day over such a long period. It's a low engagement activity and respondents are unlikely to remember. But if we ask about clothing purchases, past month might be the most appropriate timeline. Or past 5 years for car purchases. The higher the engagement, the lower the purchase cycle or consumption frequency, the longer the time frame that respondents can handle. Make sure you're using the appropriate one.